Major League Baseball meat left on the bone, as we like to say. But we're going to get right after it tonight with college football and also do a quick preview of some NFL action. Drew Martin's going to join me in just a few moments. We do have a special 5-pack picked out. If you have extra time, we'll certainly hit up on the live chat box and go over a numerous amount of games that you think interesting, and maybe we can put you in the right direction on it. But once again, if you're just coming into the show here, welcome to the closing line for September 22nd. By sportsbookreview.com. I'll be your host today, Donnie Rightside. Drew, why don't we get right after it here? Host of Marketology, host of The Round Table. You see him all over the place on videos with Sportsbook Review. Drew, welcome into the show, my friend.
Hey, Donnie, thanks for having me, man. Friday afternoon, almost happy hour, getting right into what? We got college football tonight, Major League Baseball slate, heading right into Saturday college football, and of course, NFL on Sunday. So great weekend ahead, Don.
Now, it's funny because, we do shows a lot on SBR all throughout the week, different guests, different mindsets. You get to ask different questions. Now you're coming down the home stretch here, Drew. Friday, you're getting ready. Still have a couple football games tonight, you're right, but the meat of that card is ready to go tomorrow. Most of the analytics that you like to do that takes place Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just checking over, poring over schedules, poring over information, seeing who's in and out, Drew. Are you ready for this weekend's college football or what over there, huh?
Dude, I'm excited. As far as ready, I still got a couple games I'm kind of mulling over, getting ready to pull the trigger on one way or the other. But as far as ready, yeah, by this time in the week, Friday afternoon, I'm just about there. A couple more bets tonight. As we'll get into the Utah-Arizona game I am involved with. So, yeah, excited tonight and really excited for tomorrow.
Now, glad to have you on the show. We'll tune it up here for the weekend, just setting up some numbers. Also, one of my favorite parts of the show, CG Technologies' Devin Brackett is going to join us today. Matt Holt is on assignment at the Cosmopolitan, maybe, shaking up the machines, trying to get in there on that Minnesota Vikings line to make sure it's correct down there in the front office. But Devin will be joining us right around the halfway mark of the program. Always like to have somebody from that company on just to see what's going on. We call it across the counter. We're going to see where the money's going, who won last night in the Monday Night Football game, who's taking money Saturday, who's taking money Sunday, winners and losers. So we'll certainly have a lot of fun. Drew, why don't we get after it right now? Let's clear up some of the baseball card just to give the people some meat left on the bone. As I like to say, it's September. October baseball is going to be a lot of fun, but hey, got about a week and a half left in the Major League Baseball season. A lot still to be decided here. 9:57, 9:58 here. Chicago Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers. Lackey versus Woodruff. We take a look at the line, opened up in Chicago's favor here of -119, dropped to -113 at Pinnacle. Chris sitting at 116, Sportsbook at 111. Over-under opened up at 9, now up to 9.5. It looks like across the board. Lackey Woodruff on the mound. Lackey's been good all year long. Veteran pitcher. I'm not a big fan of his, but hey, when you're getting the job done, you got to give him out there some props. Milwaukee Woodruff, the young pitcher, heading down the stretch. The key ingredient why we picked this game, Drew, is because it's going to have a postseason type of feel. Last night, a game that Milwaukee should have had won, lost in extra innings. The lead increased in the National League there for the Chicago Cubs in the division, but also the Milwaukee Brewers in a red dead hunt, as I like to say, with Colorado. Who's going to get into the playoffs at that point? Drew, any thoughts on this game, buddy?
Yeah, this is a good one. I believe Milwaukee's 4.5 out, but yeah, fighting for the wild card, like you said. And Woodruff, he's a top prospect type of guy. And usually I'm into betting on those type of guys, Donnie, but you brought up Lackey. He's not a guy I particularly like either, but last game out, I believe he got thrown out for arguing balls and strikes, so pitch count wasn't that high. So as far as rest on that arm, it kind of equals out in my mind to a little bit more of a bet-on candidate in Lackey than he usually is for me. So I'd go more on the Chicago Cubs side in this one, Donnie.
Interesting. Yeah, I know it's hard in baseball, Drew, because we see it in college football. We see it in professional football. When a team needs to win the game, they circle the wagons. But baseball's an everyday sport, and it deals with pitchers where, understand if the quarterback's really good, but you still have to have the other moving parts. If a pitcher goes out and has the right mindset and dominates, it doesn't really matter, Drew, in baseball that you have to win that night, correct?
No, not at all. Baseball is, like you said, every single day. You just got to get up after the losses, come back on. It's not like, even the exact opposite, I guess, would be like college football, where one loss can kill you, two, you're almost out of it. So that's when it gets weird as far as betting on the team after a loss. But baseball, I almost don't put that in, especially just one game. If it's like 3 or 4 or 5, maybe you start to cycle it in, but one loss, no, I don't do that at all. Do you, Donnie?
No, no, no. Looking at this game, I had to go one way. The Cubs are on a cheap line. I know Milwaukee's at home. They should have won last night, but they didn't. I just look for the Cubs. Whenever you're going to get a line, under 120. I know it's on the road. I know how big of a game it is. I would lean Cubs in this instance here. Over under, don't really have a feel for the 9.5 in a playoff type of atmosphere game. We all know in October, pitching is going to be the premium. Each and every bat counts. Maybe you're going to just move the runner over as opposed to try to a double in the gap or bunt him over with a sacrifice. I would lean under here. Any ways you lean in this game, Drew?
I'd go leaning towards the Cubs with the Lackey. A little bit, the pitch count wasn't as high last time, getting thrown out. So that's the way I'd go in this one, Donnie.
Yeah, we'll keep it moving. 961, 962. Colorado, San Diego. One team fighting for their life. The other one just letting some young kids get in there and see if they can get hot in hopes of having a good offseason and carrying over some good graces. That's going to be Gray and Lyles here. And it looks like if we open up the lines, 160 at Pinnacle, currently sitting at 161. Chris at 170. Sportsbook.com, 170. BetOnline, 165. So a heavy favorite here for Colorado, which lost last night. And they are in that tight vice grip heading down the stretch with the Milwaukee Brewers, so obviously a must-win. In this game itself, clear mismatch to me. Lyles coming back, hasn't pitched very well in his last 3 outings. Gray's been pretty good. Last 3 games, Drew, 3 starts, averaging 6 innings per start, a 1.50 ERA, and on the season, over 18 starts, a 3.75 ERA. I'm going to lean on Colorado here. I just think you have the better pitcher, the better lineup. I know they don't play as well on the road as they do at home. They don't hit as well. I mean, there's no surprise to that, but I think Colorado's going to be able to pull this one out. I still would lean. It's a high number during the Major League Baseball season, July and August, Drew. I'm not really interested in laying, 161, 170, but I think Colorado's the clear side here for me. Got to win tonight. Better pitcher on the mound, better lineup. Give me Colorado here.
Yeah, I'm on the same side, and I'd even take it a step further. I mean, is minus 160 even that high, considering it's Gray versus Lyles? I mean, Lyles has been, not good at all. He's actually sucked. And then John Gray, I mean, especially when I was betting baseball hard, April, May, June, July, it was, it was John Gray or pass. I love that guy. He was one of the pitchers I did pretty well with, Donnie.
No, I would agree. And that's why I'm just going to lean on the better team heading down the stretch. In the summer, you look for false flags like we always talk about, what's going to take place. And, maybe they can bite them. But I just think Colorado's the right play, especially since they lost last night in that tight race with Milwaukee. I'll lean that way. 967, 968. Tanaka and Estrada on the mound. Opened up at 153. Now up to 170 at Pinnacle. Drew, Chris showing 179. Sportsbook.com at minus 173. And if we take a look at some of the pitching highlights, so to speak, in this one, Tanaka over his last 3 starts, Drew, a 5 ERA. We all know his struggles away from the Bronx, an ERA of 6.14. Estrada's last 3 combined starts, he's 2-0 with a 1.80 ERA. But again, another one. Yankees need this game. I think Tanaka's going to get back right here. I don't think Toronto's going to be, fighting for too much at this point. It is a big number again, 179. I'll lay it again with the Yankees. I think they're the better overall ball club, better bullpen. I think the better pitcher is on the mound. I think the Yankees do just enough to win this ball game versus the Toronto Blue Jays here. So I'll go square, and I'll stick with the Yankees, same way I did with Colorado here.
And what are you laying with the Yankees?
Yankees look like they're across the board. Let's go. Sportsbook.com's 173. So you're getting a price a little bit south of the 2-1.
Man, I don't know. Marco Estrada's been good, Donnie. I would look towards the dog here. I believe what's the stat here? He's let up 3 earned runs or fewer in all of 2 of his last 11 starts. I mean, so he's been around the plate as well. He's not going to kill himself. They're in Toronto, don't want runners on the bases, especially against, any AL East matchup. So Tanaka's struggled away from Yankee Stadium like you touched on. Man, that big plus price, I'd actually go with the dog here, Donnie. I'll take the other side.
That's pretty, hey, you can't fault it. A home team getting that big of a price, I can certainly see the angle in there. If we take a look at some lineups, Yankees, Ellsbury, Judge, Sanchez, Gregorius, Castro, Holiday, Headley, Frazier, I should say, the law firm to end up there, Todd and Clint. Good lineup there. If we take a look at the Toronto Blue Jays, Hernandez, Donaldson, Smoke, Batista, Pilar, Martin, Montero's in the lineup, Barney, and Goins. I always get a laugh out of this, too. Miguel Montero, since coming over to the Blue Jays. He's DHing tonight, Drew, with a 136 average and 2 home runs on the season. So not really putting that DH to good use for Toronto. But I can see your point there. Decent pitcher on the bump at home where a pitcher has struggled on the road. I'll just go completely chalk in this one. I'll go ahead and take the Yankees. I know you'll be leaning towards Toronto with that nice price. Next game on the board, Drew, probably the best one of the night. 971, 972, Richards and Verlander. Again, two teams heading into the playoffs. The Angels trying to hang on there and climb into that second wild card spot. Line currently sits at 150 at Pinnacle, 155 at Chris. Chris opened at 170, so you're down about 15 cents in that one. But both of these pitchers come in hot for this game. Houston, obviously the home team here. Verlander's been very good since coming over from the Detroit Tigers. And back off the DL, Richards, he's been really good as well. This one seems to be a close one. Both of the, I mean, does Houston technically have to win? No. I mean, they have it wrapped up, but LA, the Angels trying to get into the playoffs. I don't like to put that much stock into, again, as we get back to, do you have to win or do you want to win? I just think getting a nice price in this instance, if you're getting plus 138, plus 140, plus 138, depending on where you're shopping at, I'll take the road team here and give it a whirl.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you necessarily, Donnie, but I would look more towards this total. I kind of like the under. Both pitchers hot, like you touched on. Verlander, since he's been since he's been in Houston, for whatever it is, mindset, who knows? He might like the mound, whatnot. He's been good. Also, I remember with the when Houston's playing at home, the background there, they switched it this year. Some batters have had a tough time reading the ball out of the pitcher's hands. So I know it's an American League game. You got the DH, all of that. But I don't know, Donnie. I just like the under. If I'm betting this, two good pitchers, hard throwing pitchers there in Houston, I'll go under.
Next up and final in the docket of our 5-pack in Major League Baseball, 979, 980. Boston again in that head-to-head battle, trying to hold on to the AL East crown. Going against Cincinnati, we have the Paisan on the mound. Sal Romano versus Rick Porcello. Taking a look at the lines here, 142 Pinnacle opens up at. They're down about 10 cents to 132. Chris opened up at minus 145. They're down to 133. Sportsbook.com, 135 in the favorite of Boston on the road at Cincinnati. If we take a look, Rick Porcello on the season, road starts there, 3.43 ERA. Very good. His last three starts haven't been that great, a 4.59 ERA. But take a look at Sal Romano, 1.45 over his last three starts. Versus Pittsburgh, 8 innings, 0 earned runs. Before that, at the Mets, 5 innings, 2 earned runs. And before that, Drew, at the Pittsburgh Pirates, 5 2/3, 1 earned run. So, I mean, if you go down, he allowed 6 earned runs, Drew, on August the 13th. After that, it looks like 1 run, 2 runs, 3 runs, 1, 2, and 0. So certainly keeping them in the ballgame. I know the Reds are always a hot commodity at home when they are the underdog because they can hit. But, I mean, I don't know how much that carries you this late in the month of September. The Reds aren't going anywhere. I know Romano's been hot. Boston needs the game. I'll lean on Boston here. Short number. I'll go square again, minus 132 with Boston. Over under in this one, Drew, looks like 9 to 9.5, depending on where you're shopping. Any leans in this one?
Yeah, NL Ballpark, lose the DH for Boston. I know Romano, he's only 23 years old, but he just shut out the Pirates his last time out. He's a guy I like, high upside guy. On the other side, we got Porcello. Let's see, Porcello, he's let up a bunch of home runs this year, I believe in the mid-30s. However, he hasn't let up any home runs his last 2 times out, Donnie. So it makes me think, he's caught on to something. Porcello is a guy that I've always kind of had a little success with. So both pitchers I got marked as kind of bet on guys. Losing the DH in the NL Ballpark. I'll actually lean under in this one, Donnie.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, it's going to be fun, Drew. I mean, we do go over baseball each night, the closing line, and we have to pick on it, even though it's technically quote-unquote football season. In the month of October, we can settle into some playoff baseball. It's going to be a lot more fun. You can cap it a lot easier than just saying, hey, I think they need to win, or who's actually cares on Cincinnati if they win the ball game. So a lot more to digest once we get to October and playoff baseball. But, Drew, it's Friday. It's Football Friday here at Sportsbook Review. Why don't we get into some college football games here? And again, folks, if you're just tuning into the closing line for today, September 22nd, presented by SportsbookReview.com, we are going to have CG Technologies' Devin Brackett, Matt Holt's right-hand man, joining us in about 15 to 20 minutes here to go over the across-the-counter section. That's where we're going to get to ask him where that money's flowing. So any sharp money came in at the last minute, what's a pros versus Joe play? We'll have a lot of fun with that, so we look forward to that in a few minutes. But, Drew, now it's time. We're going to dig into some college football. I know you gave me a 5-pack earlier, which people sent over and do want to go over. Keep in mind, folks, we've gone over just about everything throughout the week on every show. Drew does a lot of stuff. Bet Buffet with the big man on campus. He's on with Joe Lisi, hosting a lot of stuff. So all these games are out there. Check out the videos on YouTube as well as at SBR Sports Picks. It's all there for you. But Drew, let's get into it here. 309, 310. We'll start on the rotation tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. I'm excited about this football game. Two teams that I like, Wake Forest and Appalachian State. 84% of the spread ticket money, Drew, coming in on the road team here, Wake Forest. We actually saw some movement today. This line has been hovering around that 4.5, 5 range, Drew. Now at Chris showing 6. Sportsbook.com, 6.5. The Greek at 6. Do you agree with the line movement here, Drew? What can we look forward to in this ball game?
Absolutely, I agree with it, Donnie. And let's break this one down, because I'd like to get your opinion on something. When App State went to San Marcos, played Texas State, they really hung around with them. I thought they would blow them out. They didn't. I lost on that game. And one thing I noticed was the talent level for App State seemed to be down. You know, when they went into Athens, they got beat by the Bulldogs. And you kind of shoved it off as, okay, Sun Belt team at an SEC team, whatever. That's what I did anyway. So when they went out to Texas State, and they were pretty much even talent-wise, a little bit better. But, I mean, a better coach team. But talent level, I don't think this App State team is at the same level they were last year. And it's starting to show up. So, and I know the Rock there in Boone is a tough place to play, but I believe Wake is only about 80 miles down the mountain from Boone, North Carolina. So it's a short trip. There's going to be a lot of Wake Forest fans there. We got an ACC opponent going against, you know, a Sun Belt opponent that is a top echelon Sun Belt opponent, but not like they were last year, Donnie. I really don't think so. I think that they lost a little something, and it showed last week. So I agree with this line move. Do you think that it actually has something to do with last week's performance, or do you think this is just kind of numbers, ACC not traveling far towards a Sun Belt opponent?
Yeah, I mean, 16% of the tickets coming on Appalachian State. That's kind of odd there, because usually Appalachian State over the past couple of years, you probably would agree, very sharp play when they're playing bigger schools. But if we look even last year, Miami came into the Rock last year about the same type of spread and walked away with an easy spread winner. So I don't know if they're taking a look back at something like that, but I agree with you. I don't think this App State team is as good as the past few years' teams. If we even look, you know, a measuring stick game, Georgia wasn't that good opening night and still was able to handle them 31-10. Savannah State, you know, you take that one out 54-7. But last week, you're right, the Texas State game, a 20-13 game. I don't even want to say if App State's looking ahead, because they're not that small of a school, and Wake Forest isn't that big of a program where you're saying, like, know what, we can't get hurt here. We got Wake Forest next week. I mean, I could see if it was Miami, Florida State, or Clemson coming to town. So I take that out of the equation that they were looking ahead. If we look at Wake Forest, the way they set up so far throughout the year, Drew, the first 3 games, I'm impressed. I mean, Presbyterian stinks, 51-7. They beat them easily. BC coming into the game, you didn't really know what you're going to get, but they handled them 34-10, dominated that football game. And that line was actually a pick 'em. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Drew, was that on the road at BC, I think it was?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And then Utah State, who, you know, over the years has done some good things out west, put them away easily, 46-10 in that ball game, Drew. 291 on the ground, 297 in the air. A really balanced attack. We joked about it all summer long, saying, hey, it's going to be interesting to see what Wake Forest can do this year now that the other team doesn't have the playbook. I agree with the line movement. I think Wake Forest is a better team than Appalachian State, and you don't have to win the game by a lot. Just handle it by 7 points. I would be really surprised, if Appalachian State was able to pull the upset in this one.
Yeah, and you know who brought up a good point was Ian Cameron on the roundtable about what their radio guy that was giving out the plays, and ever since he's been caught, Wake's gone on like an 80% ATS run. So the market's really been kind of undervaluing Wake since that happened. So that could also be an effect as well, like people be coming on to that fact and then looking to bet Wake. Combine that with the fact that App State didn't look good at all last week. And I think that has a majority to do with what this line movement is, Donnie.
Yeah, public perception into the line basically is reality when you're betting the football game. So I agree. We'll keep it moving here. 4 games to go. Mississippi State and Georgia, Drew, on the rotation, 323, 324. Line opened up in that 4.5, 5 range. Chris actually opened at 6.5 in that one on an early line, but it looks like the markets have spoken here. 62% of the spread wagers on Mississippi State, and it's forcing that number lower. So you're getting roughly 4 across the board in this game. Over under opened up. Chris had 51.5, now sitting at 48, 47.5, depending on where you shop. If we take a look at this game on its head, Drew, Mississippi State really opened some eyes, handled LSU easily last week at home, now going on the road. This is one of those interesting ones because LSU's a physical football team. It's almost like the Seattle Seahawks effect, where if you play the Seattle Seahawks the week before, you're tired the next week because it's so physical. I'm interested to see how they can keep that energy up going in between the hedges there to play this football game. And I'm actually surprised, Drew, because most common bettors don't really look at Mississippi State outside of last week. I mean, Dan Mullen coach team, they can move the ball on offense. Fitzgerald's an interesting quarterback. He can both run and throw. But I'm really surprised that the public hasn't really jumped on Georgia. Only 38% of the tickets coming in on spread wagers and a low spread with Georgia being at home. Is that surprising to you at all, Drew?
Yeah, it is surprising, Donnie. I actually don't agree with this line move. I like Georgia at home, laying the short number, and a couple reasons why. Dave Malinsky wrote about it in Point Blank. Mississippi State, you brought up Fitzgerald. He is a great player, and Mullen can coach quarterbacks all the way back to when he was a coordinator back in his Florida days. He was producing quarterbacks. However, LSU's defensive front is down right now. Not only they're down compared to past years, but they have injuries up front. So going against that defensive line, don't think like, oh man, it's the LSU D line coming after you. It is a different D line. Georgia's defensive line is a step up. And going again, I think they'll be able to kind of rough Fitzgerald up enough to kind of get him off of his game a little bit. Also, Georgia, in my opinion, is the class out of the SEC East. Now, granted, this is a West versus East matchup, but they have to go onto the road in Athens. It's going to be a tough environment here, a night game. And that place gets pretty wild. So this is going to be a tough atmosphere for Fitzgerald just the week after LSU. So, I'm going with the Bulldogs of Georgia, that is, in this one, Donnie.
Yeah, no, I technically would lean with you in that situation because the one thing that's really going to be, something that's going to play out as the game goes on, they beat Appalachian. I'm talking Georgia here first. They beat Appalachian State 31-10. They struggle with Notre Dame, but you're at Notre Dame. You put out a win. That's really what matters. Very impressive. Young quarterback, first start on the road, gets the W there. You come home, you take a breather against Stanford, 42-14. The one thing I'm interested about is Mississippi State, Charleston Southern blew them off the map. You expect that. Louisiana Tech handled them easily and handled LSU easily in that one. The only question I have, Drew, from your, gambling perspective on that, when you play a cupcake at home like Samford, you don't have to expend much energy. You roll the helmet out there. You can rest some starters in the fourth quarter. Even though you beat LSU 37-7, you're playing the entire game out. You're not used to winning monster football games at Mississippi State. You pull one out. Kids are celebrating. Now you got to go on the road in SEC territory into a hostile environment. Is there any carryover effect for Mississippi State?
I think so. I think spot-wise, it favors Georgia. Georgia's been putting more into this game for a longer period of time, and they're at home. Keep in mind, Mississippi State's having to hit the road. It's not the easiest trip from Starkville to Athens. I mean, granted, we're talking SEC, so it's private planes and stuff, but still, it's not, where they're sleeping, I'm not exactly sure, but it's not in Athens. Mm-hmm. And then, it's just a good point you bring up. I mean, Georgia's probably been preparing for MSU, going back to late last week, putting different designs in that they kept from the game film. Who has Georgia had to use things against? Not many. This is, Mississippi State is going to get the full force of the Georgia Bulldogs. So, yeah, I do bring that into my handicapping, and it makes me like Georgia even more. I disagree with this number full force. I'm going to be betting the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. Next up here, Drew, an interesting game. 3:33, 3:34 on the rotation. It's going to be 3 p.m. tomorrow. Central Florida and Maryland, 64% of the spread ticket wagers, Drew, coming in on the home team. Terrapins, line opened up at 4. Chris opened up at 3.5. Looks like the line actually moved a little bit today. I know it was flat 4 yesterday, flat 4 earlier today, but now you're seeing 4.5 peek its head here. The reason why you picked this matchup, probably, I'm going to assume, Drew, is you have one team, Florida International, that hasn't played in almost a month. Hurricane comes to town, you get out of town, take care of your family, come back to the football team when we're ready. You might be a little bit out of it. Maybe you couldn't hit the weight room as much as you wanted to. But now you look at a team coming in with Maryland who actually had a true bye last week, getting ready for you all along. 51 points versus Texas, 63 points versus Towson. If you look at the first game that UCF played, everybody was very impressed with the game. I mean, they were 17.5-point favorites. They won easily, yes, and they were supposed to. But Mackenzie Milton and the boys moved the ball up and down the field at will. It was a blowout winner over Butch Davis and FIU. How much stock do you take off of this extremely long layoff for an offense, that was clicking on all cylinders, expected to be very good? Is that going to take away here? Because that line is pretty cheap and giving Central Florida some respect heading towards Maryland here.
Yeah, Donnie, I mean, you hit the nail on the head as far as why I wanted to talk about this game, because I thought it'd be a good conversation between the two of us. And what a tricky handicap this is. I mean, there isn't going to be a lot to reference this to, because UCF looked as good as you could. Granted, it was against FIU, but ever since then, I mean, they haven't played a game in September. I believe that game was at the end of August. So it's just really weird having to head on the road to College Park, Maryland. Maryland, on the other hand, you brought it up. They did look good. The quarterback went down, though, and that was the guy that I really liked. The backup, I haven't had a chance to see very closely. I've heard good things. I mean, the offensive coordinator, Walt Bell, he was the guy that came over from Arkansas State. We all remember Freddie Knight and running around back there. That's why I really liked Maryland going into the season, because the starting quarterback, his last name starts with a P. He could really run around. So I like that combination. The backup I haven't seen much of, but UCF, on the other hand, McKenzie Milton in Scott Frost's offense, I love. However, the extended time off, it's always risky on how that's going to affect young guys like that. But I'll tell you this, Donnie, and I'm not for sure on it because of the extended time off for UCF, but this total move from 64.5 down to 60, as low as 60 right now at 5 dimes. I don't really agree with it, man. I think these offenses are going to get after it. What do you think?
Me and Jeff talked about that earlier. One of the interesting thing is it opens up at 67, 64.5, depending on where you got that opening number. But all the markets seem to agree it's going to be at 61 or 60. And just if you look on it on its head, one team likes to go 100 miles an hour, and the other team on the opposite side, doesn't matter really how fast they go. They put up 51 and 63. So I mean, and Central Florida puts up 61. Are they both a little bit better defenses than FIU and Towson? Yes, I get that, but you would just think both of these teams could easily get into the 30s here. I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying there, Drew.
Yeah, no, so that's the way I would look. I mean, because looking at its side perspective, to tell you the truth, I kind of have both of these teams as bet on, especially UCF. So just getting 4 on the road with that tricky handicap we were talking about. I mean, they haven't played in a long time, going up against an ACC foe now. So going from FIU to Maryland is a step up. I do like UCF from a side perspective, but I like this total over 60 more. So that's the way I'm going in this one, Donnie.
No, I think you're dead on that one. I don't really have a great feel for which side to play in that game. 4 points seems like a nice number if you're the home team for Maryland. But again, it's sort of a mixed bag what you're going to get out of UCF. Whether they win the football game or not is tough for me. But I know they've been off a long time, but they're going to come in healthy. They have a pedigree. If you're saying like, hey, they're not used to being off that long. Well, I mean, they had basically all summer long practice, then hit game one running with over 60 points. So I would tend to agree with you there. 363, 364. Interesting one here. Hawaii and Wyoming. Looking at the numbers here, very light betting right now, Drew. Under 2,000 tickets have been wagered here. 73% are leaning towards the home team. Cowboys, the line opened up at -7 at Pinnacle, -7.5 at Chris. Chris now sitting at 5, Sportsbook at 5, Bet Online at 4.5. So we actually had some nice movement this afternoon. That line was creeping around that 6.5 range, now down full 2 points. I talked with Jeff earlier today on this one, trying to figure out what was going on. Because, again, if you look at the total, 57, you're saying, wait, big-time quarterback in Wyoming. Hawaii's going to throw it all over, go 100 miles an hour, not play great defense. What gives in there, Drew? 45 degrees and rain on kickoff. Yes, 45 degrees in that elevation. So that's going to throw a wrench in that. But seems like a cheap line. We all know when Hawaii comes on the mainland, technically, they don't play that well. But then again, looking at Wyoming, Drew, they've obviously playing Iowa and playing Oregon, not the easiest schedule. But I was hoping that offense would be a little bit more in gear than it is right now.
Yeah, Donnie, I'll tell you what, man, from watching Josh Allen, I think he's hurt. And I think that has something to do with this, too. I don't think this guy, it's like a pitcher in baseball. The sharp money comes in before, the announcement comes. So you get, 1 or 2 starts where you can really make some money. I think he's hurt, man. I really do. I think something happened with his shoulder. So I don't think it's the Josh Allen that we knew from last year. Going against Hawaii is going to throw it around. Drew Brown, I really like him. He can run around. He's pretty good. He's pretty accurate. He can make things happen. I believe Hawaii will be able to move the ball. So I would look for the Rainbows. I believe they're off a bye as well. I haven't bet this yet because I wanted to look a little bit more into that Josh Allen, injury thing. And as far as Donnie, I don't know if you heard about the MTSU thing with Don Best and Brent Stockstill, how they said he was going to be probable, and then he didn't even practice or anything. So where did that come from? That's a whole mess in the betting industry, but that's for a story for another day. So I don't know who to trust. I'm just kind of
it's like the whole Darius Geis thing there. When you look at it, Darius Geis was like, he ain't playing, he's out. Coach said he's out, and today you get the update like, oh, but by the way, he's going to play this weekend. So yeah, always tread lightly in college football information for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to really know who you're getting your information from when it comes to injuries. And if it's not the beat writer, I kind of pump the brakes, man. So, but yeah, I think Josh Allen's hurt. So I think that has something to do with this line movement, Donnie.
I mean, look at the games that Wyoming has played. We all saw it last year. Now, he did lose a lot of weapons. I mean, Brian Hill was an all-conference, almost, an all-American caliber running back with the amount of stats he put up. A do-everything running back, first down, second down, third down. Lost a couple wide receivers there. So, obviously, I feel Gentry was one of the good ones there. But 3 points versus Iowa. I know Iowa's a good defense, but 59 yards on the ground, 174 in the air. You play Gardner-Webb. You're favored by almost 40 points. You only win 27-0. You run for 65 yards in that game. And then you go up against Oregon, and Oregon's going to go really fast, so you're going to get a ton of possessions in that game, Drew. 117 yards on the ground, and even a worse look, 66 yards in the air. So if you're going to be a dominant quarterback, I mean, I get it, but that wasn't a game where, Drew, where Oregon's trying to run the clock, and you said, man, we only had like 3 possessions in the first half. You had a lot of time to rack up only 66 passing yards. That's going to be a problem for me going forward. And again, 45 degrees, Drew. You're going to have it in elevation. I know they're used to the elevation, but rain and cold, quarterbacks don't really like that too much.
No, not at all, man. Rain, cold, wind, that's not what you want. I mean, if Josh Allen's hurt, we'll definitely be able to see it on Saturday night because Hawaii's defense is awful. So if they're able to move the ball, maybe he's not, and this is just something, a blip on the radar. But it is something I'm definitely looking out for. So, and if he is hurt, watch out. The Rainbows might be a live dog here, Donnie.
Yeah, no. We'll go on to the next of the 5-pack here for you, Drew. 383, 384, TCU and Oklahoma State. Now, 10,000 tickets have been wagered on this one. 74% of those 10,000, Drew, leaning on the hometown Cowboys in this one. Opened up at 12.5 at Pinnacle. Chris opened up a little bit lower, 10.5, but look across the board. Chris, 12.5. Sportsbook.com, 13. BetOnline, 13. The Greek, minus 12.5. If we take a look at the over-under, a healthy 71 in this one, Drew. What do you see out of this one?
Well, it brought this one up because it's the headliner, Donnie. I figured people would be interested in this one. We talked about it on the roundtable as well. I just think Oklahoma State is a tough team to cap. It's kind of the runaway train mentality. If TCU can keep it close, I do think they're within, a 13 points of them. However, Oklahoma State, when that offense gets going, all those wide receivers, an NFL-type quarterback, it's really tough to handicap, in my opinion. So instead of going on the side, because I could see TCU moving the ball as well, I like this over. I mean, 64.5, that's what I'm showing as the opener. I missed the BOL totals openers this week, kicking myself for it because I would have been all over this over. Now it's showing 71. I still like the over, Donnie. I don't think there's a lot of defense in this. And, it's Oklahoma State TCU offense up and down the field. I go up and over the total in this one, Donnie.
Sounds good. We've got a little bit of time. Having some technical difficulties here getting in touch with Devin Brackett, so hopefully he'll be up shortly. But, hey, Drew, we got a full slate here, so we got plenty of games to go over. Let's beat right down the bush. Tonight, we'll talk a little bit of college football. 305, 306, which getting underway in about an hour and a half. It's going to be Virginia and Boise State, Drew. 15,000 tickets tracked in this one. 62% leaning on the Virginia Cavaliers here. The line opened up at 12.5 at Pinnacle, now sitting at 13.5. Pretty much 13.5 across the board. I know the big information that came over the wire over the past couple of days is Rypien has been cleared to play in this one. The only question that most of us have, Drew, is he going to start? Is he just going to be probable because he's going to be the backup, and if we need him, he's going to play in this football game? Or, Drew, does it even matter in this football game? What are we looking at here?
Donnie, actually, I think it matters a lot. Rypien kind of knows the offense, has kind of, led this team for a while. Whereas Cozart, he comes over from Kansas, and he hasn't seen a lot of he's more of a dual threat guy, runs around a lot. And going up against Bronco Mendenhall's defense, I've kind of been watching this for a couple years. When his defense, he runs like a 3-3-5, so it can be confusing for younger quarterbacks that haven't seen it. And so, not that Cozart is younger, but he he doesn't strike me as the pocket passer that can really break down defenses. So keeping that in mind, that Rypien playing and being healthy would make me really look towards Boise State. And if he's not playing, I would go actually towards Virginia and the dog, because I think that this defense can confuse them, cause some turnovers, and might be a live dog here in Virginia.
Yeah, if we take a look as a whole, I mean, Troy's no slouch there. Beat them 24-13, closing line roughly around 11 there, so got the push. Washington State 47-44 shootout there. Beat New Mexico State, dominated the football game, but the backdoor cover came in late as that game was 28-7 late. So, I mean, a lot of people are down on Boise State. It's not like they're getting pummeled, and it's no shame losing to Washington State. Washington State's a good football club. Beat Troy, beat New Mexico. I think they're the better overall team of Virginia, but again, in football, it's not about winning the football game. It's about covering the point spread. Looking at it from a Virginia perspective, Connecticut, 20-point victory. I don't know how much you want to take out of that. We pretty much know what UConn is about. Indiana, 34-17, lost William and Mary, 28-10. That was a winner. So I think the point spread is about right. But again, I'm just waiting to see if Rypien's in the game. I do agree. I mean, it's a much more fluid offense. Gets the ball in and out. He's used to that system. So that's going to play on it. 307, 308 tonight, Drew. Late night here. Utah and Arizona in a Pac-12 tilt. We take a look. 71% of the public, Drew, leaning on Utah here with the spread tickets opened up at 4. Currently sitting at 3.5 at Chris, 4.5 at Sportsbook, 4.5 at BetOnline with an over-under of 61.5. To me, just looking overall at this football game, I think Utah is the better team. But again, picking up a conference win on the road is always tough to do. But backing Rich Rod for me over the years, always tough to do. Sometimes I don't think his team's coached all that well. And for some reason, they're injured every game bouncing back. But it looks like they're coming into this game relatively healthy. Got right versus UTEP. How much you want to take out of that football game, I don't know. Which way are we leaning in this one tonight in that Pac-12 effort?
Yeah, Donnie, I mean, they look like the shit against UTEP. You got to give them credit, don't you? Come on, man. I mean, that's against UTEP. What? I would say
down the field on them.
The second worst team in all of college football. But no, they're going to see a defensive line and linebacker, the front seven of Utah, that they haven't seen yet this year. So Brandon Dawkins, the Arizona quarterback, I think you're going to see a different type of quarterback tonight than you saw last week. On TV. I don't know if it was national TV. I know it was on the TV that I was watching. So Utah on the other side, their quarterback, I think he's kind of underrated. He's dual threat guy, gets all over and accurate. So mostly because of the Utah defensive front, I think that they can really shut down Arizona. A lot of people bringing up what Rich Rod is like 4-1 against the Utes since he's been in Tucson. Yeah. I don't really care about that. I mean, this Arizona team isn't like, 3 and 4 years ago Arizona team. And Utah, I just think that their defensive front this year is still strong to get after them, kind of break up that, I guess you could say, kind of trickery offense. It's definitely Utah for me in this. And Donnie, also interesting line movement. You touched on it a little bit. I believe it was, depending on the opening number you take, 4.5 all the way down to 3. So you could jump on Utah at 3, now back up to 4. So differing opinion out there in this one.
Yeah, if looking at the game, Utah, Arizona more, I don't want to say a soft football team, but, get it out on the wings, not much power football. I do like their running backs, but if you take a look at Utah, if you watch them over the years, that's a tough football team. They're going to run read option. They're going to pound the football. They're going to bring in 3 to 4 running backs. They're going to play hard-nosed defense. So it's a battle of, I want to say attrition, but Arizona clearly not as physical as Utah wants to be in this football game, but you're going on the road. You're a road favorite in this environment. It's going to be interesting because looking at, you beat Northern Arizona, you clown them. Houston, you lost at home in a tough fought game. I look for this game to be more like that Houston game, 19-16, than maybe a shootout of, let's just say, 42-28 or something like that. How do you see the total in this football game? Because it is at 62. I don't see it going, if I put it this way, if I had to bet this game, I'm going under 62 here.
Man, fuck. I'm trying to get a read on Arizona's defense, which I don't feel comfortable in like Utah's team total. I'm not as comfortable with as I think Utah will have more success on defense necessarily than they did on offense, because that 16-19 game Arizona had against Houston, that does scare me a little bit. Because I didn't actually watch that game. Obviously with Saturday, as much college football as there is, you can only get to so much. So I'd like to kind of break that down a little bit more before going into the Arizona defense. But I just think Utah on the defensive side is going to have their way. So I'd be reluctant to go over, but I could. It wouldn't surprise me, Donnie. I don't have that strong of a read on the total. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm leaning on the under in this situation. Again, 62. I mean, it's not like we're dealing with like an NFL total like 44, like 62. I mean, you got to score some points in this game. I just like it's not two teams that technically want to run away from the game. I know Arizona's always looking to press it a little bit, go a little bit more up tempo. But the thing I like about Utah is they can get down and dirty, and they can get grimy. If they say, you know what, we have an advantage up front, getting 4 yards a chunk, they'll take the 4 yards a chunk and not even worry about passing the football. That's what I like about them. So coming, and again, it's just a feel for the game. It's 62. If this game ends up somewhere around 32, 28 or something in that range, which they might be looking at, I'll lean on the under in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Tyler Huntley, though, on the other side, you could see him making some plays. So that does scare me against, years past Arizona defenses.
Carrington's a big wideout. Yeah, I'll give you that. Yep, sure.
So it's just something that's the reason I haven't bet it anyway. But I definitely like the Utah side a lot more from a side perspective.
Yeah, it doesn't look like I don't think we're going to get Devin Brackett here connected as I'm going back and forth there with the production room here, Drew. So we got plenty of time to talk some football, about another 15 minutes left in the show. Any ones, I mean, I'm looking in the chat box now, anything that you looked over on Saturday, Drew, that forget about even capping wise, saying, you know what, there's a couple games tomorrow. I want to watch one of these. Any one of those games that you're looking at?
Yeah, let's see. We got a bunch. I'm watching Larry over here, man. He's going after it. The production guy. He's awesome, by the way. Let's talk Florida Kentucky, little SEC East matchup if you want.
Yeah, sure. Yep,
all right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. This one. I think the streak ends here, Donnie. I really do. I just think spot wise for the Gators, 20-20 going against your rival Tennessee, throwing it up there. Hail Mary style, not really a Hail Mary. And then having to go on the road to Lexington. I just think that this is, with their offense, granted they have a good defense, but their offense, I don't see them scoring much. And Kentucky at home, I think the ball bounces their way. I'd put the 3. Actually, the market's agreeing with me, down to 2.5 now. So I like Kentucky. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, it's interesting because 61% lining up there taking Florida. About 10,000 tickets have been tracked in that one. I think the line is about right, right in that 2.5 to 3.5 range, which it's going to fall on. The only question because when you're a Kentucky program, you beat Southern Miss 24-17, not impressed. Eastern Kentucky, an own state school, maybe they got up for you 27-16. You beat South Carolina for the majority of the game without Deebo Samuels. They're 3-0, I get it. And most of the public, Drew, to me, is going to say, oh, my, yeah, hey, they just beat South Carolina, man. Beat them by 10 points. That's amazing. But when I dive into this game and I look, if you look at Florida, they did play 2 blue blood programs. Lost to Michigan. No slouch there. You can't throw, or have that many turnovers, just have bad quarterback play and win. Michigan was the better football team that day. They should have won and covered. But Tennessee, 6-3 coming in real sloppy. There's something to be said about playing those caliber teams and still pulling out victories. And you don't need Florida to win by 14 or 21 points. I agree. If there's a spot where Kentucky needs to beat Florida, it might as well be now. But we've been saying this for 30 years now? When is Kentucky going to win this football game? That's weighing on them as well because Florida comes from the same way Spurrier used to go at it with Tennessee when they had Peyton Manning. Hey, we're ready. We're going to beat Florida. And Spurrier would just sit there and be like, you ain't beating, you can't, you're not going to get through us. You're not going to be, what was the saying in that? You can't spell citrus without UT. You just kept telling them and toying them with them. Because it's easy to call a victory, but if you've never done it before, that is a monumental task. And I don't know how good Kentucky is or how prepared they're going to be for this football game because you're still going to get that strong SEC defense from Florida. And now they've pulled out a victory. They know how to win the ball game. I don't know. It's a tough one right down the middle because I haven't seen them do it before, and we'll see if they can.
Yeah, I like that. You can't spell citrus without UT. I remember that one.
Yeah.
But what about the Kentucky quarterback? I believe I'm not sure what year he is, but he's experienced. He played last year, and he's more of a mobile guy. And I'm thinking they're just going to pound into his head, don't lose this game for us. Make a couple plays with your feet. We'll see what happens. Don't turn the ball over. If he doesn't turn the ball over, that makes me like Kentucky a lot. I know that that's a tough ask. And also, the night game atmosphere after that huge win, spot-wise, it's tough on the Gators. I know they have a good defense, like you said, Donnie. It's just, but you bring up some good points. The South Carolina game, yeah, how impressive was it? And then other than that, who have they beat? So, yeah, I wouldn't put the mortgage on this one, but I lean Kentucky.
Yeah, Johnson's decent quarterback. I mean, I do like him. Snell is obviously a very good running back. It would have been nice if they still had Dorian Baker. Who's the kid? Was it Badette that went to Oklahoma? It would have been nice if they just, steamed up with a couple of both of those guys. But yeah, until you show me you can do it, I don't know if you can. And again, if Kentucky was getting 7.5 at home, I'd be like, hey, you know what? Let's just play with them and have some fun and see what happens here. So, but no, it's going to be. I'm glad you picked that one out there because 7:30 start. It's going to be at night. Big game for Kentucky at home. We'll see what happens. See if they can overcome it. But no, another good one there. Why don't we talk a little bit of NFL action here over the past couple minutes and get to some games on Sunday, some early alert games. Drew, do you have any games that you have picked out? I just want me to scroll down and see what's what for us here.
You want to touch on this Jacksonville-Baltimore game in London?
Yeah, why not? I mean, looking at Baltimore and Jacksonville here, 461, 462, about 7,800 tickets have tracked. Drew, we got like a 50-50 ticket split here, which is interesting. Line opened up at 4.5 and 4, down to 3.5. It did peak bottom out a little bit today at -3. A lot of injury information coming out here for the Baltimore Ravens. Still a lot to be determined on who's going to be injured for Jacksonville. Cornerback, safety. I know a couple of those are banged out. Jalen Ramsey, if he's healthy or not healthy, that's going to be a big determinant. I'm not that impressed yet with Baltimore. I do think Jacksonville has a good defense. It's on the road, technically in London, so nobody really has a feel for this. The one thing organizationally I think Jacksonville has an advantage is they've been to London a couple times. It's probably a seamless transition, probably stay at the same hotel, the same meals. They have it down. They know the best way to get to the stadium and all that. That's fine and good. But Baltimore has been gifted their first 2 football games. And I don't know if it's a lot of part of Baltimore being very good on defense, which they are, or just bad quarterback play. But again, you're getting Bortles in this game. You're not getting Alex Smith where you say, hey, you know what? We average getting like 5 turnovers a game. And Alex Smith's coming to town. He's not going to turn the football over. Then it would be really interesting. But again, Blake Bortles can turn that game over. You saw the second half of last week where they played Tennessee. Close game. Couldn't close late. That's what Bortles does. I mean, they end up getting blown out in that one. If I had to lean on this game myself, I would probably lean on taking the points, 3.5, 4, depending on what it ends up at. Just a tough game to call, but I'll lean on the points in this one. Any thoughts on that, Drew?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd lean on the points. And I was going to bring up the point that Jacksonville's been to London a bunch, like you said, it's kind of like a second home. What did they sign a contract to play there every year or something, Donnie?
Yeah, they always ask for people to go over there, and Jacksonville actually makes more money going over to London than playing a home game, so they sign up for it every damn year. I think it's like their 5th straight year going over there.
Nice. I've been to a couple Jags games in Jacksonville. It's actually fun, man. The tailgating, I like it. But I mean, these two teams have played each other close, Donnie, year in, year out. So I would put the points in your pocket, especially you get the extra half hook 3 or Greek showing 4. Blake Bortles, man, I just go back to those UCF days. I kind of like him. As far as breaking down the NFL, though, I know it's the lot different story. So he's got to not turn the ball over, which I think that second half will be in his head. In the preparation for this, he didn't play well. So that's the way I would look at it. I would put the points in my pocket in London.
Yeah, interesting one. Their story about they said like the tailgate atmosphere down there in Jacksonville. I actually went to a game at Jacksonville. It wasn't the Super Bowl with the Eagles and the Patriots in 2005, February of 2005. I actually went to the ACC championship game there, which ended up being Florida State versus Virginia Tech. The reason I bought tickets, booked my room and flight is because the Miami Hurricanes were supposed to be in that football game, but ended up losing to Reggie Ball and Megatron in the Orange Bowl, and I couldn't do anything with the tickets. So me and my brother still ended up going down to the game, and instead of watching our beloved Hurricanes, we sat there and watched Florida State and Virginia Tech, and it was like shoving a pin into my eye. But that's one of the interesting stories about me heading to Jacksonville and buying tickets a little bit too early, thinking that Miami had already booked their tickets into the ACC title game. Because I wanted Florida. I've been to Florida State Miami games. They're fun. I'm like, dude, we got to go to the ACC title game when they play Florida State. And I sat there rooting for Virginia Tech in that football game. So always a funny story about heading down to Jacksonville and tailgating down there.
Hey,
let's
Donnie,
see what we got here. About 10 minutes. Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
No, I was going to say, who needs a sportsbook guy when we got stories about you traveling to Jacksonville to tailgate?
Yeah,
hey, It's a small world because that Reggie Ball and Megatron thing, I saw them play game 1 that year, and they came into Auburn. I think it was my first game as an Auburn student, and dude, just seeing Megatron just kind of make work of Division I DBs there in Auburn. It was amazing how good that guy was in college.
No, you're so right, because the maddening part about it is Reggie Ball was, I mean, this wasn't before, like when Paul Johnson got there and he's running triple options. Like Reggie Ball literally was the worst. I mean, accuracy is not even the word that you can even give him. He was like a 30% passer. But Megatron was out there making the most ridiculous catches all game long against an NFL secondary that the Hurricanes had. And I was losing my mind. Like one of those, like 3rd and 19, you throw it up in the air, Megatron just going all over the place. I always found it funny that a team that always struggled passing the ball ended up with Megatron and Demaryius Thomas. It just always made me laugh. I had no, like, how do you get Megatron to Georgia Tech? Imagine if he would have went to Auburn or Alabama or just some major program and dominated. But the dude was dominated at Georgia Tech, where he had a quarterback that was like 5'6" and could barely throw the football accurately at all. It was amazing.
He's from around Atlanta, and his mom was big about education. So Georgia Tech's a really good school.
How did he end up in Athens? I mean, that's amazing how he went to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I mean, because Georgia Tech is such a good institution, so I think that had a big thing to do with it. And he was like 3.8 or 4.0 there, so really smart dude.
No, that was a lot of fun watching those guys, but it's always a funny story. I remember buying those tickets the week before, like it was a done deal. Got together, watched the Miami game that weekend, and it slowly was inching away, and Megatron was making ridiculous catch after ridiculous catch. And after the game, I was like, dude, I have tickets to the ACC title game booked and ready to go, and my team didn't even make the damn game. Always one of those, like we like to talk about on Twitter, when you post your ticket on there, or you're up 14-0 in the first quarter, man, this game is easy. Hold on to that ticket, man, because it ain't always trying to save like $50 or $100 on airfare to book it early. Ended up costing me money in the end of it. But yeah, sat down in Jacksonville, flew in on a Saturday morning, watched the game Saturday night, flew back on Sunday morning, and was like, man, what is the deal? So yeah, that was my story on hanging out in Jacksonville there.
Nice, man. Hey, speaking of the calling games too early, did you see Vig Simon in the Baylor Duke game? He was calling the win.
I did not. No, go ahead. What's the story on that one? Go ahead.
I don't know. I was following along on a long Saturday college football, but it was like him, big man, and he was like, oh, Baylor was the right side, and then, I don't know, Duke came back and scored, and it landed right on the number, so I think he kind of had an early call on that, but nothing big.
No big deal. Let's take a look, maybe one more game in the NFL, and we'll get out of here. Let's pick anyone that you're interested in there, Drew. We'll go right down the list if you want to.
Dude, I know you know NFL better than anybody. You go ahead, bud.
Yeah, let's take a look. I mean, why don't we get into one of these interesting ones? Drew Brees, Cam Newton, rotation 473, 474. Line opened up at 6, currently at 5 and 5.5 across the board. Actually, the Greek showing 6 and Bovada showing 6. A lot of injury information in this one. Khalil, the center, is out for the Panthers, as well as tight end Olsen. So it's going to be a slowed down game. I know even on the injury report, Cam Newton shows on there how injured he is. The ankle. I don't think it's that bad. But if you look on the opposite side, they're going over with New Orleans, losing Lattimore in this game. He's going to be out. They're already suffering on defense, 2 tackles down. So up front, can they protect Drew Brees? That's going to be the question mark. I think this might be a get-right game for Carolina, even though they're banged up. And even Benjamin showing up on the on the injury report this week, but he is supposed to play in this football game. I think the front 7 is going to determine this ball game for the Carolina Panthers. And the more I look at this game, watch some film on the game, get a feel for it, I don't know how much Cam Newton's going to be under duress and should be able to pick apart that bad team. But also, I think Carolina's going to get back to doing some groundwork in this football game, handing off, getting McCaffrey right. They haven't been able to get him on track or untracked this season yet. Also, Jonathan Stewart up the middle. I think this is a nice game for Carolina to set in. It's just a matter of how much points can they put up in this game. I do think Drew Brees, one of the better quarterbacks in the fourth quarter that can close the door, but I just think enough of that Carolina offense where they should be able to push around the defense. Front 7 of the Carolina Panthers should be able to get after it. If I had to do a pick on this game right now, I probably would lean Carolina in this one, Drew.
Yeah, so would I, Donnie. And I think it was you that brought up the good point of he had surgery in the offseason. I'm talking about Cam Newton, then pretty much didn't take many snaps at all in the preseason.
Nope.
So watching him in the first 2 games, I think was really, really critical. I would even think about fading Carolina if I was betting on him. And last game, only putting up 9 points against Buffalo. Before that, I guess they had a pretty good game against San Fran. But it makes me think to pump the brakes on Carolina. But I mean, have you kind of evaluated Cam as looking sharp and accurate as a passer?
No, he's not accurate, and he's not a great passer yet. It's going to come as the weeks go by. He's going to get sharper and sharper. I'm just looking at this point that when it all fails, I think Carolina is going to be able to do whatever they want on the ground versus New Orleans. And the one thing I'm worried about is New Orleans is really banged up still on the offensive line. They're not that well-oiled machine that they were last year with the Brandon Cooks in the offense. They're still trying to find their way, making Michael Thomas a number one. But it all stems from that secondary and that defense. I don't know if they're going to be able to hold up, because if you watch the front seven, even the past couple years, forget about this year, an unbelievable linebacking core, a front four that can get pressure without blitzing. Carolina's secondary, not a great secondary, but again, this isn't one of your better New Orleans offenses over the past couple years. And you take Drew Brees out of the dome. We all know the statistics on that and how well he doesn't do. I just think looking at that number, I think the odds makers were pretty sharp making it 6. And I think there's an overreaction saying, well, 6 points, I don't think they're that good. And again, the first 2 games that New Orleans played, no harm losing it at Minnesota, no harm losing to the Patriots at home. But I do question how good actually the New Orleans Saints are. I can very easily see this game ending up somewhere around like 31-20 in that range with a cover and a win for the Panthers here. That's all.
Yeah, and it sounds like you like the over too. I mean, I haven't checked the weather yet in Carolina, but
I think it's a good weather game. Yeah, I don't think the weather's going to be any issue down there. So yeah, I would lean towards the over in that situation as well, because when all else fails, Drew Brees is boom or bust. He's going to throw for 250 yards at least in this football game. So you would have to factor on something like that. And I think Carolina can get some easy touchdowns and grind out some yards on the ground. I do. I think Carolina's going to get into the low 30s in this football game.
How do you grade out Carolina's defensive line?
I love Carolina's defensive line. I mean, very strong. And again, that brings back the whole point. If you have a good front four and you can let, Tommy Davis eat back there, if you can let Luke Kuechly eat back there, Shaq, not Lawson, Shaq, the kid from Washington, damn good. I mean, you can't pick 3 more athletic linebackers there for the Carolina Panthers to run around. I just think they'll make all the difference. And again, it's at home. They're on grass. They're 2-0 so far. They can put a dagger in New Orleans season and send them to 0-3 while they're 3-0. So I look for them to put in the goods here this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd go Carolina in this one, and I'd lean with you on the over, especially if Drew Brees, if it's a nice weather game, then I'd go with the over too. But I'd lean more towards Carolina.
Sounds good, man. That's been the closing line for September 26th, Friday, a big weekend here at sportsbookreview.com. Tomorrow morning, Jeff and Pete will be on at 11 a.m. for the closing line college football edition. On Sunday, 12 p.m., Gabriel Morency and myself will be here at 12-1, also back at halftime for the first game. Later on in the day in NFL action, Jeff and I will preview the game at 7:30 p.m. for Sunday Night Football, and then a betcast with Jeff and Gabe to carry you out throughout the night. So check in the SBR, sportsbookreview.com. We have you covered this entire weekend. Drew, thanks for being my guest today, and also the host of Marketology. Good luck with everything over the weekend. Check out all the latest at SBRodds.com and follow us at SBR Sports Picks. Also subscribe to us on YouTube. From all of us at Sportsbook Review, good luck on your wagers, and we hope we helped you beat the closing line today.